Hello, welcome to the VOD. As always, there should be timestamps. As always, I faff about at the start. As always, you might wish to use the timestamps to skip the faffing about. Also, I only just woke up. Right, with that said, let's hit the go live button. Yep, title looks fine. Alright. We are now broadcasting live, he says, half yawning. So let's post the thing in the thing and do the thing. Right. And with the thing done, I guess I'll give it a minute for people to show up. Hello Alex, straight in there of course. I suppose I should just, I should at least load up Twitch. That'll be a good idea. Where's the... Ah, that made a noise. Good, that means that that's working. Yes, I should actually have my Twitch dashboard loaded. That would be a good idea, wouldn't it? Right, well, I'm going to give it a moment for people to show up if they want to watch. I don't know how many people are going to want to watch this because it's not overclocking, but oh, hello Crispy Silicon. But yes, also I woke up from a nap like half an hour ago and I need a drink, so I'm going to take that drink while I wait and see if people show up. Delicious water. Crispy Silicon asks, plan. Yeah, so I'm going to talk through the system, which is going to start in momentarily. Probably I'm going to finish talking you through the plan, and then I will immediately start talking through the system. And then I'm just going to just fire up a web browser, go to some websites that tend to be a bit laggy. I'm going to see how the resource use is. I'm going to see, can it handle YouTube videos? Basically see whether I can do light web browsing. Hello Link4Hunter. Can it run Crysis? That's an interesting question actually. I'm not sure, do I have Crysis on Steam? Would I be able to install that? Because it's got a 5770 in it. So where's Steam on the streaming system? I have Steam on this system, I swear I do. Windows 10 start menu. Search, Steam, right. While I find out whether I would be able to install and attempt to run Crysis, which I think is actually an interesting question. No, not just ready to play, don't update things. I said while I do that, but then I don't know what the end of that sentence was ever going to be. I'm very tired. Sorry. As I already mentioned, I just woke up from a nap, and it's like I'm not very with it. Do I even have Crysis? I don't have Crysis. Okay, well, whatever. Right. Yes. So I should run through the specs and actually get going. So, firstly, why am I doing this? Which I appreciate sounds a bit like, why are you doing this and please stop. Basically, a friend of mine needs a system for light web browsing, and I have a lot of junk components. So, yeah. I decided to put some together. So this board is an Asus M5A97, socket AM3 Plus. Not a bad board actually, but this one in particular, that PCIe slot's fucked. So the GPU is in the bottom slot, which is probably not ideal for anything. So it's on just 4 lanes. And as we know from the tech media lately, any GPU that's only on 4 lanes is just absolute shit, and is completely irredeemable. But yeah, processor-wise, we've got an Athlon II X2 215, 2.7 GHz. So 2009 processor. GPU there is an HD 5770, also from 2009. The memory is a bit of an anachronism. That's actually, it's a couple of 2 gig Hynix OEM sticks with the 2 gigabit BFR IC, which I think is a little bit more recent than '09. I think that's more from like, I want to say 2010 or 2011. Anyway, the board's probably a bit more recent than that as well. I have no idea what the name of the cooler is. You can probably find it all over the place. It probably goes by many different names. And yeah, this is the system. So I'm... Oh yes, one other thing. There is a Wi-Fi card under there. I'm just going to drop down the camera a little bit. Hopefully I can... It doesn't go any lower than that, does it? Come on. Down you go, down you go. Yes. So there was a Wi-Fi card under the GPU there. Now, that's left the camera a bit tilted. That's fine because I'll be switching away from it in a moment. So one of the things that I'm going to check is the thermals on the GPU, because between being down here at the bottom of the case and having a Wi-Fi card like half blocking the fan, I'm not sure what that's going to be like. And of course, to test that, I'm going to need to put the side panel on. So that's what I'm doing next, and then we'll see how it goes from there. So I'll pop the side panel on and then I'll switch to the capture card. Everything is more difficult when you're streaming, because you have to think about the stream as well. My problem is I'm fully capable of putting a side panel on a computer case. I mean, this is probably mostly just the fact that I'm going to keep bringing this up because it's going to keep being relevant. I'm half awake. It doesn't normally take me this long to put a side panel on. Although it's just a little bit ill-fitting as well, to be completely fair. And also, this thumb screw is from a Be Quiet power supply. Oh, Dr. Jarvis. Tested it boots before putting the side panel on, yeah. Link 4 Hunter suggesting I get Crisis on GOG. It's an option. Right, capture card. So, I built the PC already, and there's a couple of reasons for that. The first is that I don't trust myself to do a very good job building a PC on stream. You just saw how much trouble I had putting a side panel on a case. The second reason for that is that actually installing Windows took a little bit, and updating Windows took a lot longer. But I took a screenshot of the updating process. So this is what it looked like when it was updating. 100% CPU use. So very much the update was CPU bottlenecked. And it did take a while, as you might imagine. But I think that's completely done now, hopefully. Yes, up to date. Ooh, let's find out if we can run Windows 11. And I know I'm using Microsoft Edge and people are going to have opinions about that, I'm sure. Wait, what's this? Is there not a thing? We're working on it. Okay. We're doing some extra testing to make sure Windows 11 is ready for certain PCs, yours included. So that they're trying to make sure that Windows 11 is ready for PCs with an Athlon X2. Well, fingers crossed. You know what? we've got 1 gigahertz or faster. We've got 2 or more cores. We've got 4 gig of RAM as well. We don't have a TPM. That might be the only sticking point. Crispy Silicon says, honestly, I'd think about avoiding Windows 11 just because of the user and the search function. Yes, I mean, I wouldn't actually want to install Windows 11. I'm just going to move the mic. Hopefully that... Right. There we go. Now I don't have to worry about leaning towards it as much. So, in terms of the general web browsing experience, one thing that I wanted to try out was Google Maps, because that's something that's like... No, don't switch to Chrome. Let's find out where I am today. Apparently I'm in South Wellfield at the moment. Who'd have thought it? But yeah, this is the kind of thing that it's web browsing, but it's a bit of a pain. So let's make our way down to London. Well, it's lagging. Not too bad though. Let's get directions somewhere. Let's get directions to Buckingham Palace from... Where did it drop us? South Wellfield. Sure, why not? Public transport, of course. Train good, car bad. I mean, I'm really feeling it, but it works. Madness asks, well, is it? I mean, this seems fairly usable, honestly. I mean, how are we doing on... Like, no thanks. General, like, CPU usage. I mean, it's getting hammered. But, oh. Yeah, it seems to be okay. It seems usable. Oh god, it's an AMD from 2009, says Madness. Yep. YouTube. Yes, good shout. And I thought I might end up doing YouTube, so I've got some headphones plugged in. Because if I'm going to go on YouTube, I'm going to look up Linus Tech Tips. Because... Oh, they have a new video out. Cool. What's an appropriate Linus Tech Tips video? Yeah, let's have a video about a not very good PC. We've got an advert for Minecraft. I wonder if Minecraft would run. I mean, the adverts are actually running okay, I guess. So what's that? That's at 480p. It doesn't feel that smooth, if I'm honest. Oh, that's got up to 720p. Can it handle 1080? That's really jerky, isn't it? Yep, that's skipping, really jerky. 100% CPU. But 720 seems to be okay. I mean, it's not brilliant. It's not happy, says Dark Joris. Yeah. I think it's not happy is about right. It's usable. It's working. I'm slightly surprised that the memory usage isn't higher, to be completely honest. Like, it's not really gone up. Oh, now it's gone down a bit. Alright. So, I wanted to see about GPU temperatures. That's a big one. Link4Hunter says, I don't see the GPU, lol. Yeah. I think the GPU is, like, old enough that GPU monitoring is not a thing. So let's open GPUs, Ed, and we'll at least see what kind of temperatures it's hitting. Ah! Did I accidentally... I opened it twice, didn't I? Right. So GPU sensors... Okay. Yeah, so there's not a GPU load monitor that's meaningful. Are those graphs actually being plotted okay? Yeah, they're being plotted okay. Right. Can I... If I make that smaller and then open up two GPU Zs. Crispy Silicon says, or any video decode from the look of it. Yeah, I'm not sure for the 5770. It might have something. Right. I'm gonna call, like, FutureMark Legacy benchmarks a test of how it does at downloading things. Let's go with 05. I like 05. So this is, I mean, mostly down to the Wi-Fi card here. My home internet is capable of about 3 to 4 times that speed. Is there anything quicker that we can do? No, of course. Alright, well. Link4Hunter says 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi, yummy. Yeah. Well, okay, so funny story there, actually. I'll switch you back to the camera for a moment. So, I asked what's the range requirement for the Wi-Fi. Like, can I just, you know, use a USB adapter rather than a Wi-Fi card that actually goes in the system? And my friend said, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Significant. So, I'm using a Netgear Range Max with this great big panel antenna on it. It's only wireless N, though. Right, well, our runtime thingy-mabob for the render test is downloaded, so let's install that whilst 3D Mark's downloading. Oh. And Windows wants to download something else, so that's going as well. Yeah. I do kind of wish I'd prepared some kind of game now, even though, I mean, it's not going to be used for gaming. Oh, if anyone wants any more 6500 XT jokes, bus width. We've got 128-bit bus here. Although, to be fair, the actual memory bandwidth is going to be significantly less. I'm not even sure, like, I mean, Windows just said it wanted to download something and I let it. I'm not even sure what it's doing. Can I just fire up the render test now anyway? Yeah, I can. How about that? Okay, well that's gone up quickly. It's a little bit all over the place, to be honest, the GPU temperature. That's interesting. It's definitely on the high side. I mean, the 5770 at least does idle properly. And it's not really, you know, it's not for gaming, it's just... that is high though, let's be honest. That's getting toasty. That's higher than I'm really comfortable with. Surprisingly high as well. Alex says 80 plus during the render test sounds really high. Yeah, I agree. That is actually a little weird. I'm not sure what thermal paste is on the card. I might try and repaste it. Crispy Silicon asks paste, and yeah. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know what it's doing, and I wish I hadn't let it do it. Actually, I probably shouldn't. I shouldn't try and install more things at the same time. That's not going to help. Just need to accept that it's going to take a while doing whatever the hell it's... Thank you, finally. Good. Right. So let's install 05 just while I've got it up, and then I'll turn the system off, take the GPU out, and repaste it, I think. The fan speed was changing as well, which implies that the fan is, you know, working. But it did go up really quickly. I mean, I think the system is usable. I'll say that. Like, I am using the system right now, effectively. It's okay. I'm downloading stuff, I'm installing stuff, I'm running stuff. I am doing web browsing and I'm not losing my mind. At least not for the web browsing, but the installing is frustrating. Alright, and since this is a legacy 3D Mark, it's just available for free. Alright. Well, I'll give that a go in a moment, but not right now, because for whatever reason, let's move the camera backwards a little bit. It's on par for a public library, at least, says Crispy. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it, actually. Right. Probably unpinning this crap would help, to be fair. In fact, I'm going to do all of that right now while I remember, because it bothers me. There. Right, so shut that down. It's not shutting down properly, is it? It's doing that Windows 10 thing, I bet. Oh well, whatever. I'll move the mic again. Delicately, gingerly. And let's crack it open, have a look at the GPU, see how the GPU's looking. Kill the power. Because yeah, something is weird when the GPU is, not only when it's getting that hot, but also like, why do I have 14 viewers? This is more than I get for my overclocking streams. What's going on? Anyway, the GPU is hotter than it ought to be, so let's find out why. Is it just because the case is crap? Is it just because I've choked it off? I mean, those are possible reasons. Those are very good reasons. But it's also not impossible that the paste might not be very good. So we need to find out. Morbid curiosity, says Dark Jarvis. Yeah, that sounds about right. Right, smaller screwdriver. Smaller screwdrivers in order. And also a change of the angle for the camera while I remember. Angle that down a little bit. Bring it in a bit. Is that going to stay still? Yeah, good. And I'll just immediately put my arm in the middle of the shot. Let's do that. Right. And well, it looks like the original paste, which I suppose is your explanation, isn't it? It's so up here at the top it does look a little bit thin. You can see there and there's sort of not a lot of paste at all, and it's got the whole like crustiness thing going on. Alex says, can you flip the cooler mic? I mean, not without unplugging it, but that's what it looks like on the other side. Right. Okay. Well, let's get some tissues and go to work. Oh, the die protector's come off. Okay. Right. I guess I'll leave that off for now and then put it back on when I'm done. Crispy Silicon says, damn it, I dropped my keyboard and closed it, looks crunchy. Yes, the thermal crunchy, yeah. It was definitely looking a bit crusty. Right, I have a cotton bud somewhere. Not that this is necessarily, well, necessary, but there's a lot of like really fine dust on those two memory chips. Can I just... I'll just blow it. More cotton buds. Sustainable paper stemmed cotton buds. If anyone's wondering. Not that it really... Well, I was going to say not that it really matters. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's simultaneously important and trivial, but I could rant about paper straws, no end, but no harm in a paper stem on a cotton bud. Right, I don't need to perfectly remove all of the thermal paste from around the die. This is a little bit unnecessary. Okay, well, yeah, let's go MX5 for this. There we go, perfect paste application. Probably a bit excessive, but you know, I am of course going to spread it. There we go. Let's just wipe that off on the cooler. That should hopefully work fairly well. Infinity asks what PC you buy. I didn't buy it, I made it, but I made it out of random junk parts that I'm actually willing to get rid of. I have a lot of random junk parts. Random junk parts that I'm willing to get rid of. Now that is a much smaller category. So, let me just show you the PC one moment now. Loosen the camera. So we have an M5A97, which at this point I have enough other better boards for the socket that I don't need it, and also the top PCIe slot is fucked. The memory is single rank 2 gigabit Hynix BFR, which is useless for everything. The CPU is an Athlon X2 215, which is not particularly interesting. And I've also got a Netgear Range Max Wi-Fi card because the would-be new user who needs a PC for web browsing also needs good Wi-Fi range. So it has this monstrous panel antenna on it, which used to be a kind of fine shade of beige, and I spent a while with isopropyl alcohol and tissues earlier. I bought this as an impulse buy off eBay, as with most of my PC stuff. I think the previous owner was a bit of a smoker or something, but it's looking good now. I'm quite happy with it. Anyway, let's reinstall this cooler. Oh, die protector. Right. How am I going to make that stay in place? Well, it just... Yeah, it doesn't seem loose. I think we'll be alright. Just need to line the screws up. That ports lined up. I need something to support underneath the cooler just a little bit. Just to raise it up slightly. There we go. All, yep, all in place. Good. How important is the die protector? Asks Alex. I don't know. Probably not very, but better for it to be in place where it's supposed to be used. Also, which VRAM IC does it use? Let me just see if I can zoom in on one of them. There we go. So I think that's revision E. I guess it's 1 gigabit. Yeah, it's 8 chips and 1 gigabyte in total. So it's 1 gigabit revision E, Samsung. I don't know if I've seen any 5770s with anything other than Samsung. They might exist. Right. Alex says, I have a Hynix card. Right then. I guess they're not all Samsung. Right, let's drop the camera down a bit and reinstall the GPU. And because the primary X16 slot is fucked on this board, we have to use the lower one, which also means I need to get a bit of a weird angle on it to get it installed, but I think we've got that angle. There we go. Now I just need to get the screw on the screwdriver. I don't want to like put any excess pressure on the slot if I can help it. There we go, screw is in place. There we go. Alex says, actually both my 5770s are Hynix. 1 gigabit AFR. Oh, that's interesting. Whoops. I have, I think, at least one more 5770 lying around. I thought the other one is, there's an HIS one somewhere that has the VRM on this side, and then there's an Asus one. The Asus one's like really weird. In fact, can I grab the Asus one? Because I'll be honest, I need to spin this stream out so it's a decent length, so I might as well go off on this tangent. So, the Asus 5770 looks like that. So like the core is about there. Which is really, I mean, if you look at it from the back, you can see how weird it is. There's your PCIe interface, there's your core. But I'm kind of into it because I figure it might actually make it a bit easier to mount an LN2 pot. So I'm keeping this one. That's my logic. Also, it has like this nice stiffening bar thing, which, although that would probably get in the way, I probably wouldn't be able to keep that on if I ever did any kind of Sub-Zero on it. Alex says both of mine are blowers. That's interesting. Reference cards, presumably. Yeah. The 5770 is a bit annoying anyway, because all of the controllers are really limited on voltage. So you have to mod them. Other than, like, there's one random power color card that has a Volterra controller, and that you could probably do, I think it was like 1.9 volts should be possible on that one in software, like with the right software. But it's really, really rare. Plug the HDMI cable into the HDMI port. One's an Asus and the other one is an XFX. Are they both reference cards though? Are they both the stock referencey blowery thing? Presumably they are. I've not seen, I don't think I've seen any non-reference blowers. I might be wrong. Let's see if I do any better at putting a side panel on now I've woken up a bit. Yeah, this is going a little bit better. Right. Come on. Okay, I spoke too soon. Come on. I know you'll thread. There you go. That's threaded. Have I made a mistake by putting the side panel on before pressing the power button? Perhaps. I don't see why it would have a problem there. It should be fine. Yeah. Don't you no signal me? Right. Let's find out if that's helped. Because previously the temperature was shooting up in just the render test, and it was hitting like over 80 degrees. Is it any better now, is the question. That is a lot better. Yeah, it was thermal paste. I mean, look at that. It's not shot up, for starters. We're not having like these wild swings in temperature. It's creeping up steadily. That's fine. Also, I like how the render test is using like a not insignificant amount of the CPU. Desktop window manager, 5%. I mean, it's to be expected, I suppose, isn't it? Thumbs up from Crispy Silicon. Yeah. Alright. Well, this is good. I think we should have a run of 3D Marco 5 and see how that goes. Probably not going to go that well, but I mean, the question is, does it pass? What are the temperatures like? Particularly, I'm interested in the GPU. I think the CPU is going to be fine. I mean, let's pop the camera on there. We've got an air duct thing here. It's a fairly low wattage CPU. The cooler is not exactly a high-end cooler. It's the GPU that I'm interested in, really. Let's shift the camera up there, actually. Just in case anybody cares what the frame count is. What power is it using? There's an interesting question, since we have a power monitor. We're at 115 watts right now, which is acceptable. 350 watt power supply as well, so I mean, this isn't necessarily the heaviest load, but nice to know that it's not pushing the limit of the power supply. And I didn't think it would be. But yeah, I would say it's looking fairly good. I mean, to be honest, unless I install a game on it, and just, which isn't really, that's not the use case I'm supposed to be testing for, I think we'll actually be done with this fairly quickly. But I do have something else that I can do. Oh, why did I... Oh no. I just realised, for some reason I thought it was a good idea to put away the power supply for my test bench. Why did I do that? That was not a good idea. Because I have some new memory. I often have some new memory. I buy a lot of RAM on eBay. Which at least is... It doesn't take up as much space as GPUs and motherboards do. So I've had some interesting RAM come in, but Muggins here also thought, you know, while I'm setting up to do all of this, I'd better make sure that the area is a bit tidier, so I'll put away all of the bits and pieces for my usual test bench. Well, 3D Marco 5 takes a while to run, so I'll be over here and I'll be digging out my power supply again so that I can actually test this RAM once I'm finished faffing about with this system. Sorry, I don't have a room cam. Maybe one day, not today. What do I need? I need CPU power. Is that CPU power? That's CPU power. I need motherboard. I need SATA. Right. I don't think I'll bother letting it run the CPU tests. I'm interested in GPU temperatures. So it'll start the CPU test and then I can quit out of it. I say it will start the CPU test? Yeah, there it is. Yes. CPU rendering not looking brilliant. I say this, I'm currently plugging the modular motherboard cable into this power supply. Right. So that has actually given us a score. So we're Oh, for goodness sake. Where were we thermally there? 63 max. Okay. That's reasonable. Maybe a little bit CPU bound, but okay, I'm fairly happy with that. It works. Let's look up the 5770 on HardwareBot and see how this score, you know, bearing in mind it's at stock, see how it ranks. So 3D Marco 6, the world record is 26,500. Do I have a personal best? No, my team has a personal best. That's not what I'm looking for. Is this score faster than anyone at all ever? Is a question. Why am I... Hold on. Why am I doing this on the stream system? What on earth am I doing? Well, it looks like the Edge homepage is a bit CPU heavy here. But yes, why am I looking this up on the streaming system when I could just be doing it here? I mean, can it run HardwareBot? That's a relevant test, isn't it? So, wait. I might have been looking through the wrong benchmark then. Because yeah, this is 05. So there's our score. Definitely looks like I was a bit CPU bottlenecked. A lot CPU bottlenecked actually. Which is about to be expected. Oh boy. Has anyone ever done a slower 3D Marco 5 run on a 5770? A lot of people have done them. Goodness me. Oh. Okay, yeah. There is one slower run ever. And it's this guy on a Core 2 Duo. How about that? With DDR2. So that's what it takes to be slower than this system. Also, his screenshot's not valid, but I don't think I'm complaining. All right, so we're faster than Trisk 3L. That's good. Not by much. And that's the only person we're faster than. Well. I mean, the system works. The system can handle web browsing. I'm going to call that a win. I'm happy with that. So, with that out of the way, let's do something else. Because I've been going for under an hour, and that's a bit of a short stream. Yes, appropriate emote there, Crispy Silicon. This is garbage that can do basic web browsing. So, I'm going to take a little bit to swap over, and then I'll see if the memory that I bought works, I guess. Because I don't want to kill the stream after less than an hour. Actually, while I'm faffing around, as faffing around is not particularly interesting, I'm going to run a 3-minute ad break, and I would strongly suggest that you go and get a cup of tea, take a bio break of your own, whatever you want. And I'll see you all in a few minutes. Alright, that's running. I imagine half of you are still here. I'll just carefully move that mic. Okay. See, whenever I run an ad break, I always feel like I have a duty to not be too interesting. Just so that nobody's missing out. So yes, happy ad break. Here is an empty table. There's an insight into my storage. I have I'm storing a 990FX UD7 on top of the test bench. Actually, I might as well use the UD7. Yeah, why not? Alex says, no ads here. Yeah. I know. I think generally when I run an ad break, it makes me somewhere, I'm probably not allowed to disclose the exact amount, a single digit number of cents. It's not for the money. It's because I'm not doing anything interesting and I want to encourage people to go and get a cup of tea or something. Not specifically a cup of tea, but that's just, you know, the British me coming out. Oh, and also running ad breaks gets rid of the pre-roll advertising. Oh, apparently Crispy's had a few. Cool. Wait, hold on. How do you know you've had adverts? Go to the toilet or something. Get a glass of water. What are you doing here? You know what, I'm not going to bother actually installing the power supply like where it's supposed to go underneath the test bench, because that's going to take too long. I did stereos loud. Fair enough. It's kind of nice to hear, weirdly. I didn't think I'd be so gratified. Pull that round a bit. Something's dropped. Okay. Turn that off at the wall because the power supply is going to be on because that switch is inaccessible. GPU. Where are we on the ad break? Is it going to be over now? Oh, that's why I had Twitch open. Yeah, that's over now. Cool. Right, which CPU is in the UD7, asks Alex. I have no idea. I think it's an FX of some sort. Oh, it'll be my FX8120, probably. Yeah, I think it's the 8120. Right. I have... Oh, it's on the floor. Okay. I have a cardboard box that I can put the sorry, I knocked the camera there. I can put the CD drive on top of for mem test. Where's Streamlabs? Oh, I had Streamlabs up anyway. Good. Right. And now I need the CD drive itself, which is also... I haven't planned this very well, have I? Realistically. That's the wrong CD drive. That's... yeah, that's not going to work. Actually, no, it doesn't have an IDE port, does it? It's got a TPM port and a front panel port next to it. Right. That's the correct drive. Plug that in. It's not brilliantly stable. There we go, that's more like it. SATA cable. Right. Okay, and with that all set up, let's move the camera around a bit. Give you a bit of a better view of the postcode and everything. Right, I'm going to take a drink of water and then I'm going to grab the RAM. Right. That was the drink of water, now let's get the RAM. So this is basically, I found this on eBay and I showed a link to it to Ground, some of you may know, and he said buy it and I did because it was like a £5. So it's Super Talent, DDR3, but the notable thing here, these are 1 GB sticks, right? Not special, particularly, but they have chips on both sides. So it's 512 megabit density, like really early DDR3. I'm guessing, based on the QI there on the label, either it's endorsed by Stephen Fry, or more likely it uses Qimonda chips. So I'm not expecting it to be very good, but it's certainly interesting and rare. You don't see this low density stuff very often, especially not with like actual... What's it rated for? It says 1066 CL7, so JDEC. But yeah, you don't see this stuff often. And with that in mind, I should do a title update. Because I'm doing something completely different now. Testing out some ridiculously early DDR3. I need to capitalize that. All right. There's also an argument that I ought to post in the hardware bot server now, which I didn't do previously because I'm not overclocking. But whatever. I don't want to drag people in for what's going to be quite a short rest of the stream relative to normal. So, I won't keep you waiting any longer. Let's see if it fires up. Oh, that's looking very promising. And there we go. Let's move the camera back down to the bottom right. What's rattling? Something's rattling. if I'm pressing on the OBT, it stops. So is it the OBT against something? It's not the screws that are like being left in the OBT. I'm not sure what's rattling. I just know that I can stop the rattling by pressing down. You know what? This is probably actually going to be quite quick to test. Because, I mean, it's dual rank, so you've got the improved performance from that. But it's still only 2 gigabytes in total. Dual channel as well, of course. It's not running that quickly, but the CPU is... I mean, FX is not a particularly fast CPU, but it's not, like, that slow either. So... yeah, I mean, test 9 is the one to watch out for that can take forever. But I think I'll let this test run through, and then I don't know, do people want to see how it overclocks? See whether we can even get DDR3 1600 out of it? That might be interesting. How is everybody anyway? I don't think I asked that earlier. Alex says, wait, which IC was this? It's 512 megabit density Qimonda DDR3, so really early DDR3. I think it might be the same stuff that's like, you know that one really weird Asus P35 board, P5K3 Premium or something, that had soldered on memory? I think it's the same chips that was used on that. I'm not 100% certain. But I remember it's kind of like early DDR3 was a lot like early DDR5. Oh, hello Pirate Cypher, thanks for the follow. Early DDR3 was a lot like early DDR5 is now, insofar as not only was it really expensive and like hard to get hold of, but also it wasn't very good either. And like, you know, we're seeing this with early DDR5, like Micron Revision A DDR5 is completely terrible. We've seen DDR4 on older Lake systems actually gets better gaming performance. Early DDR3 had the same problems, and then Micron D9 GT came along, and then it was a bit better. Yes, Crispy Silicon there in chat confirming how unpleasant it is working with the really early DDR5. But yes, one of the things that happened in the early DDR3 era, Pirate Cypher says, I was looking for the best USB flash drive in the market for a week. Finally the package arrived. Oh, I'm glad you found something. I actually wrote a roundup of USB flash drives a couple of years ago. I was specifically doing 8 gig drives. But yeah, and I ended up basically concluding that if you're buying an 8 gigabyte drive, then you just want whatever's cheapest. Because, you know, that's the main thing. But the SanDisk drive that I tested was pretty good, though. Like, a lot of USB flash drives fall over in really intensive workloads. But the SanDisk one, you know, didn't. Let me find the article. Oh, it was 16 gig, sorry, not 8 gig. But yeah, it was interesting. It's kind of interesting as well how, like, the actual capacity varies. At some point, I've got 3 identical, I think they're 16 gig flash drives. Like, they're all the same model. And they're all still in the packaging at the moment because I want to test all 3 of them side by side and actually see, firstly, is the performance similar, but also, are they all the same capacity? or is it like a few megabytes different here and there? Anyway, my research concluded Samsung bar didn't get the fit because it don't dissipate heat much like the metal long version. Many people mentioned it shut down suddenly too, so I guess it's because of heat limit. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. When I've worked with like small USB flash drives, they get pretty warm, and it's disconcerting if nothing else. Didn't like SanDisk or Kingston because Benchmark sucks in random I/O. That's interesting. That's interesting because it's random I/O where SanDisk really shone in my testing, but I guess, you know, different drives. I treated myself recently to a 256 gig Kingston drive. It's just painful because it's not a high performance drive, it's just a high capacity drive. It's really slow. It just takes forever to actually put things on it. But yeah, Samsung bar is probably a good bet. I haven't actually formally tested one, but I have a Samsung USB Type-C drive, 64 gig one that I got recently, and that's the one that I used to hold Windows 10 for the system I was playing with earlier. Seems to be pretty fast, seems to be decent. Right, yeah, so back in the really early days of DDR3, there was the same kind of shortage that we've seen with DDR5 now, the same really high prices that we've seen with DDR5. And at the time, what Asus did is they had a bit of a bee in their bonnet, right? So one of the changes going from DDR2 to DDR3 is there was a change in the topology of the command address bus. So DDR2 has what's called a tree topology, which means that you have the wires going in at the middle of the DIMM, and then they split off and they go to all of the chips at the same time. Whereas DDR3 has a flyby topology, where the wires for the command address bus, not for the data bus, but the command address bus, so it's literally the wires over which the memory controller says, this is the data I want. They enter at the center of the module, and then they do a loop-the-loop, and then they start at one end and go across, hitting each chip in turn, and then terminate at the other end. And this apparently enables higher clocks, I guess, because, I don't know, it lets you make the PCB nicer or something. Like DDR2 PCBs can sometimes look a little bit cursed. Not sure if I have any immediately on hand, but yeah. If you look up like Samsung OEM DDR2, actually, let me find something on Google Images and post it in the chat. Because Samsung OEM DDR2, not laptop ones, for goodness sake. Right. That's a tiny picture. Come on. Something that I can... Yeah, this will do. This will do nicely, I think. So if you look at that, you've got all of these wires coming up in the center of the DIMM, like between the chips, and then spreading out over to the sides. And that's the command address bus. And you've got to think that's kind of a bit cursed. Probably not very good for clocks. I mean, neither is a loop-the-loop. DDR5 actually fixes the command address bus properly. But, to get back to the point, Asus had a bee in their bonnet about this. They thought, this new flyby topology, it's no good, we don't like it, it leads to higher latency. And so Asus made a motherboard that used DDR3 but had a tree topology for the command address bus. So it wired the DDR3 up as if it was DDR2, which Asus reckoned would mean you got lower latency. And they said, well, this will mean you get higher performance. Which is probably a good shout, but then they soldered on the memory, but they soldered on the equivalent of Micron DDR5 with this like really early DDR3. And so it did not age well. I think it only had like 2 GB of memory soldered onto it in total as well, and no ability to add any more. So it was not actually a good buy. Like anyone who bought one, well, they didn't really get screwed over because it's now an incredibly rare collector's item, but they didn't end up with a very good system out of it, is the thing. I'm going to find a review for that Asus board as well and drop that in the chat. Because it is really interesting to read about this stuff. No, that's not it. That's the P5K3 Premium. Okay, well, BitTech have a review. Yep, that's the one. Crispy Silicon says that's kind of unfortunate. Yeah, it is. And that might be one of the reasons that they haven't done a DDR5 board with soldered on RAM. I mean, the other reason being that the cost of developing a different PCB is probably a bit higher these days because you've got more layers to worry about. I mean, this board would have been maybe 6-layer, maybe 4-layer. Whereas nowadays, a DDR5 board, 8 layers at least. And also like a really... it would have to have a more expensive substrate as well for modern motherboards, and you might have to like be more precise when you're making the masks for it. So, for all kinds of reasons, it's just more expensive to throw together a random PCB for a silly project now. With like modern hardware going into it. Crispy Silicon says, I'm kind of surprised no nutjob has resoldered and edited the BIOS. That would be interesting, actually. That would be really interesting. I'm not sure whether the review covered whether it's actually better for performance. No, the review covered overclocking the memory. Oh no, there's a part 2 that's linked. So they have a gaming performance section. Yeah, it's legitimately faster. Wow, okay. So there's the gaming performance, and with the same CPU, an E6700 and 1066 MHz memory, or with an E6750 and 1333, yeah, it was legitimately faster, at least in some games. So, fair enough. I guess it really did genuinely help. Which does mean that for benching, perhaps if you got one of these boards and then you binned like the best possible DDR3 for it and soldered it on, yeah, maybe you would actually get top tier performance for benching. Maybe you would get better performance than what you get just using normal memory modules. Pirate Cypher says, I'm excited about DDR5, so much improvements, big fan for the embedded ECC. Yeah, I mean, I haven't decided what I think of the embedded ECC, because on the one hand, like, it's not technically the same as full ECC, but on the other hand, it seems like it would do a lot of what regular ECC does. So, I mean, yeah, like, I don't know. Crispy Silicon says it's fucking terrible is what it is. Crispy Silicon having actually overclocked some DDR5. The problem is, though, like, there's also Alder Lake. You're doing this on Alder Lake, and if Alder Lake is anything like Rocket Lake for memory overclocking, everything I've heard about Rocket Lake was that it's just not fun. Alex asks, which IC do you think you'd use for that? So which IC would I use for soldering onto a P5K3 Premium? That's an interesting one. Pirate Cypher, my regular audience here is mostly overclockers, so Crispy's coming from like an overclocking perspective in particular. That when Crispy says like about pushing ICs a little hard and it's slowing down, he means overclocking wise. But yeah, what would I solder on to a P5K3 Premium? I mean, if it was for overclocking and for maximum performance, the obvious answer's like Elpida Hyper, but then again, I would be worried about handling Elpida Hyper in that way because it's so delicate. So maybe Micron like D9 GTR would be a good option. Or maybe one of the 2 gigabit density, like higher density Microns, but they have higher density does mean higher TRFC. So it's probably not ideal. So I guess D9 GTR, probably the best bet, or one of the D9 GT variants. Anyway, we have a complete mem test pass, so the memory works, which is always nice. Let's see if it can overclock. Let's see if it can actually do 1600. That's what I want to find out. What about PSC? Asks Alex. So the thing about PSC, it's great because it does pretty high frequencies as well as tight timings. But for socket 775, you're not... I mean, the other advantage of PSC is it seems to be really durable, like, and it's quite small, so it would probably be a bit easier to solder. Pirate Cypher says, by the way, did you ever see a memtest error on modern hardware? I mean, yeah, all the time, but that's because I use memtest on overclocked setups. I've never... Well, I've had 1 or 2 bits of hardware that didn't work at stock, just if it's faulty. So I have seen it. But have I seen memtest errors on modern hardware? All the fucking time, but only because I've overclocked it. So it's no longer stable. Speaking of which... Yeah, let's take this in small steps. So... 99928, and I'm actually not sure how it will respond to voltage. Yeah, let's leave it at 1.5 volts for now, and we'll try 1333 first. This is at looser timings, much looser timings. It should work fine, but we'll see if it actually does. Right, I was talking about PSC on 775. So the thing about socket 775 is realistically you're running somewhere in the sort of DDR3 1600 to 2000 range. There's a lot of memory that has a bit of a frequency wall that can't do much above 2000, but does really tight timings. So you see that in particular with a lot of different Micron chips. With Elpida, I mean Elpida Hypers can actually go a bit faster, but you also have that to some extent with Elpida, the 512 megabit, really early Elpida, had a wall like just under DDR3 1600, and then there's BABG and BASE non-hyper in 1 gigabit that does really, really tight timings, but it just can't clock very high, so... Yeah. Pirate Cypher talking about memtest errors on modern hardware and memtest failing at stock says, now I wonder if that's because of IC limits or PCB roots length mismatch. It's really hard to make fast RAM PCBs. I mean, it is really hard, but... The thing is, if you screwed that up, then like all of the RAM that you made would be faulty. So I would have thought it's probably not the PCB. I'd have thought they'd maybe... And I think modern like PCB design software can... Hopefully it can validate that kind of thing. I think it can. There's actually another really interesting consideration when it comes to high-frequency PCB design. A PCB is fiberglass, right? And the nature of fiberglass is it's this weave of glass fibers, and then it's just filled in with resin. And that means that you have the bits you've got the fibers kind of crossing over, and then you've got a void in the middle. And that void is just resin with no glass fibers, and that has different dielectric characteristics. And that means that if a trace runs over that void between the fibers, rather than over the fibers, then it has slightly different capacitance, and the capacitance of the trace contributes to the impedance. And that means that if you just have two traces running down a PCB next to each other, and one of them is running over all of the voids, and one of them is running just over glass fibers, and it's not hitting all the voids, they're going to have different enough capacitance that it's a problem. And there was, I think it was Allegro make PCB design software, or like add-ons for PCB design software or something, and they had this blog post talking about this and about how their software can add in like zigzags to make it so that all of the traces are hitting voids in the same way, and like whatever the distribution of voids is, the impedance is still going to be fairly well matched. Which is really interesting. It's one of the reasons that PCIe 4.0 and of course 5.0 now makes motherboards so much more expensive. Is because you have these much higher signaling speeds. That's difficult, and one of the things you need to do is you need to use a higher quality substrate for it. Infinity says that has to be expensive though. Sorry, what are you referring to there? But yeah. The substrate for a PCIe 4.0 or 5.0 PCB is a denser weave that has like smaller voids, so that you don't have as many weird impedance matching issues. Which also means that the memory overclocking gets a lot better on those motherboards. But that's why those boards are more expensive. Zigzagging traces has to be expensive. I mean, my understanding, and I might be wrong, my understanding is that actually making it is not expensive. I don't think there's any reason that like actually making a board with zigzag traces would cost more. But the design stage, like if you're trying to do fancy and weird shit with the tracers at the design stage, then a lot of man hours have to go into that. You know, your designer has to spend a lot longer like just fiddling with it and making it all work. One of the reasons that you have a tendency to use sort of fairly square tracers is because it's easier to match the lengths. But that's, I mean, Allegro's argument is that if you buy their software, then it automates all of the length matching stuff, and therefore obviously you have to pay a huge amount of money for the software, but then it doesn't take all of the man hours to do it. I don't know. I think the main cost of zigzagging tracers is in like it being more difficult to design though, and taking just I mean once you start getting rid of the shortcuts that designers use, it just takes so much longer. Because like you start having to move things around by hand, and it's just Alex said, so you want something that times well at low clocks for 775? And yes, basically. Everyone loves Elpida Hyper. As far as I'm concerned, Elpida Hyper isn't real. So Micron for me personally. Also says Alex, do you know which IC the 3000 MHz DDR3 kits use? Probably 4 gigabit Hynix MFR. I don't know. 2 gigabit Hynix CFR would be capable of it. Maybe, possibly in theory, but I don't know if any got made based on that. If it's 4 gig for a stick, then it's probably 4 gigabit Hynix MFR. And if I had to guess, I would guess that they were all just MFR, to be fair. Unless it's a 2 gig stick, in which case it's CFR, in the lower density. And Alex says, can confirm my hyperstick died in transit. Yeah, they always bloody do that, that's the problem. This is why I refuse to get into hyper. Like, even though I do have some working hypers, I do not want to do it. I don't want to deal with the fact that, like, you know, you see some hypers going for a decent price and you think, oh, that'll be cool, I can test them, I can bin them, I can see which stick overclocks the best. And then you buy them and they're dead. I actually did do that recently. I broke my oath. And I bought some really nice Elpida Hypers. Good price. I got a good price. Let me grab one so I can wave it around for the camera. Right. So I picked up 2 of these. And according to the seller, this stick works. It does not. This stick did not work. I think I actually did a stream testing them. Might be somewhere in the archives. Although, I need to get around to uploading all of my streams to YouTube. I'm ridiculously behind on that. Like, it's not even funny anymore. But yeah. So yes, I got a 2000 CL7 stick, which is great. And they don't work. But the plan is, I need to check in with him on this actually. The plan is I'm going to pass them on to Ground, who has said that he's willing to, because I got such a good deal, he's actually willing to pay the same that I paid. Crispy Silicon says, I wonder if the ICs came loose in transit, wonder if clamping it would help. So, I know someone who has had a faulty hyper stick that would only post if he was physically squeezing it. However, I don't know. There might be more than one failure mode. I did actually try physically squeezing them when I was testing them, and it didn't help. I was quite gentle. My theory is, I think there's something to do with the package for Hyper, because Hyper has this kind of really weird, like, trapezoidal package. And in fact, I do have an example of that I can wave for the camera. Because I have some non-Hyper that has the same package. And it's not going to be very easy to see. But it's just a really weird shape. And I think what's going on with the package for Hyper, and for all Elpida BASE, to be fair, is like they've taken the chip and then they've just stuck the package around it while it's still on the wafer. Which is, there's a name for it, and I can't remember if it's chip scale wafer level packaging or if it's chip level wafer scale packaging, but it's one of those. And I think the way that Elpida did that, at least did that like up until Hyper, because the ICs started looking different after the Hyper failures. I think the way that they were doing it doesn't work. I think, not that it doesn't work, sorry, a bit tired, misspoke. I think that it's delicate. I think that, like, the top of the ICs just isn't that strong, and so if there's actually excess pressure on it, then it transfers that pressure to the die itself and can damage the die. That's what I suspect is going on. Alex says, one more thing, how would GDI do on 775? So, Samsung GDI, 1 gigabit GDI, it does really tight CL, which is great, but the thing about GDI is one of the things that's good about it is it clocks ridiculously high, and it keeps doing the tight CL at really high clocks. On 775, I would think you're just going to be at CL 5 or 6. Then your other timings are still going to be a little bit on the loose side. I would expect it to not be that good, to be honest. You know, it's a high clocking IC primarily. I'm just trying to think. I tried it on AM3. Alex says so it'd do well on X79, Z97. Yeah, pretty much. I've used it on Z97 to great effect. In fact, let me pull up the score that I got. You know, since I have an excuse to brag about something. So this was... Actually, there was some close competition on this because it was part of a competition on HardwareBot. But yeah. Fastest ever 3D Mark 05 on the integrated graphics for a 4790K. And because it's the integrated graphics, really RAM heavy. And GDI is great at that. X79 probably... I'm not sure. Probably, yeah. Ivy Bridge clocks memory really high. Sandy Bridge I think is a bit more limited. But it does high enough. Like, it'll reliably do 2400, so it's probably alright. Well, I think I'm willing to call this pass done for the sake of moving on. So it does 1333. Does it do 1600? And then if it does 1600, I'll see if it can tighten up the timings at all. Forks says, when trying to bin PSC, I was told Ivy Haswell are ideal platforms. Yeah, exactly. I mean, with PSC, so AMD FX can run the speeds that PSC hits as well, but it seems to just be lighter on it somehow. Like you can run better settings on AMD than you can on Intel for some reason. But yeah. So yeah, Haswell is ideal because not a lot of stuff can do like the 2600 CL8 that you're shooting for with PSC. Anyway, let's try 1600. Fingers crossed. I'm seeing a C1 postcode. Is it going to move on? Is it going to go past C1? F2, C1. Ooh, 25, 2B. Well, we're booting, but is it booting into recovery? That's the question. Did it just need another go, or has it given up and recovered? It's sitting on 75 for a suspiciously long time. Alex says ground reflashed SPDs to revive Hyper. So talk about Forks asked what's the usual failure mode with Hypers and has anyone had success repairing them? So the thing that Ground did to repair Hypers is he would flash the SPD to turn a dual rank stick into single rank, or actually to cut down the amount of addressable memory in the stick to say like, this is actually only, you know, a 1 gigabyte stick, you know, this is a lower density chip than it really is. And that's what part of what makes me think it's like actually IC damage. Like the ICs themselves are getting damaged. Because if making it so that only half the IC is accessed makes it work, then the other half is fucked, right? Like, the actual cells on the IC must be fucked, because everything else isn't changing. That's just stuck on 75, isn't it? It's been on 75 the whole time. I'm sure if you asked Ground about it in the HardwareBot Discord, I'm sure he'd be very, very happy to talk about it at great length. Ah, here we are. Boot failures because of overclocking. Guilty as charged. Well. I'm going to try more voltage. Let's see if 1.65 volts helps. Not looking promising. C1 again. Oh. Oh, okay. Yeah, screw it. 1.8. YOLO. Nope. How's the VRM on the UD7 compared to the UD3, by the way? Asks Alex. The UD3 VRM is already plenty as far as I know. I mean, the UD7's like, it's 8 phase, which is 4 phases with doublers. I think it's using 50 amp power stages. It's a nice, it's an alright VRM. I mean, it gets a bit warm. I mean, heatsink's not noticeably warm at the moment because I'm not really pushing the processor at all. But when I have, like, put it this way, I don't have to worry that the VRM's going to get too cold if I'm using sub-zero cooling. But it's enough. I'm not worried that the VRM's going to fail either, is the thing. So, if 1600 doesn't work, let's try 1500. And let's drop down our HT link, so that's not going too high. I think CPU core clock was 3.2 stock. That should be alright. Let's try that. Tech Tested says, all I know is there are more 8 GHz UD7 subs to HardwareBot than UD3. Yeah. I don't know about all UD3 boards, but I know that some Gigabyte boards of that class have overcurrent protection that's set kind of low, whereas that's not an issue for the UD7. It's kind of weird how MemTest is showing the correct memory speed now, but the wrong base clock. Anyway, 1500 works, so that's interesting. We might have a frequency wall around the kind of 1550 mark, maybe 1500. So that's always fun. Makes me wonder actually, because like Elpida BABG, which is their first 1 gigabit density stuff, that has a reputation for a really low frequency wall. It makes me wonder if it's mostly just the PCB or something. Like, was it a problem with early PCBs, or was it actually a problem with early chips? Or what? Or is it just that two different DDR3 chips happen to have a frequency wall in about the same range? Which is entirely possible. While that runs, I'm going to refill my water bottle. One sec. Gotta stay hydrated, especially when you're talking. Right. Alright. I mean, 1500 is looking pretty happy. I think I'll let test 8 run, and then I'll drop into the BIOS and I'll see if I can tighten timings at all. Right. I think there was some talk about Bones streaming today, but I don't think he is, because I think he was having some issues with the system. Delicious water. Right. Oh, I missed Alex's earlier message. You've got right, yeah, because you were asking about these. What was it, like 8 gig Kingston sticks of some sort that were being sold with a Rampage 4 Extreme? So you bought it and the seller included a full custom loop and a 480mm rad. That's great. Technically, it would be unscientific to just kill the test now and not even let test 8 finish. It probably won't take that much longer, will it? A few more seconds. Alex says, hopefully that 3960X is better than my 3960X that I'm currently on. Is your current one not great? Sanity Bridge is kind of weird because it's like there's not a lot of cold scaling. So the biggest binning factor is just finding something that can boot the 57x multiplier. But that's for, like, you know, really, really pushing it, obviously. Nearly there, 98%, 99, come on. Right. Let's try some tighter timings, or should I try and find the wall? 4.5 gigahertz at 1.5 volts. What the fuck? That's ridiculous. That's really low for 1.5 on Sandy. I don't have a good enough cooler to go faster. I mean, as far as I know, Sandy Bridge isn't that, like, temperature sensitive, but it makes me think that you might be, like, limited by the cooler or something, because that's a really high voltage for that speed. Yeah, I hope the new one's better than that, because goodness me. And I guess you'll have a good enough cooler now. Let's try 1550. We will find this wall. I think I've found the wall, to be fair. Or not? Is that booting? I think it's frozen on the post screen. Ah, shit. Right, okay. Yeah, that's frozen, hasn't it? I hate it when that happens. I'll try just resetting it, see if it recovers now. It's an 01 postcode, that's a new one. Okay, that looks like it's decided that there's a problem and it's recovered now. I think the recovery on this board gets a little bit annoying when base clock's involved. But hopefully we'll see in a minute. And yeah, Alex says 480 more custom loop should do the trick. If it doesn't, I have no hope. Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, assuming that the pump and the block are decent, I would imagine that would be plenty. It'd be really interesting, actually, whether it makes your current CPU any better. That's still not displaying anything. Let's reset again. That's more like it. So, how much is it reset? I've still got my multipliers dialed in, so if I just change the base clock to manual again, and everything is as I left it. Okay, that's alright then. Let's go back to 1500, since that seems to be like near enough where the wall is. Ooh, actually, no. Because 1550 booted but wasn't that stable, let's find out if more voltage helps at all. So let's see if it can boot with 1.65 volts and actually get somewhere. That's looking promising. So it does scale from voltage a little bit. Maybe. Yeah, I mean, that's clearly better than freezing on boot. Okay. Some non-zero voltage scaling. Isn't that lovely? I'm actually kind of glad that it's produced some errors, because now I get to see if even more voltage helps. Pirate Cypher says, "Oh shit! I mean, it's to be expected. You know, it's overclocked. This is DDR3 1066 stock, and I'm running at DDR3 1550, which is admittedly not very high speed, but this is fine. This is expected." I'm actually kind of glad it's produced some errors, because basically now I get to see if adding even more errors, I get to see if adding more voltage makes the errors go away. And it's fine. Like, if I set this back to stock, it will pass mem test again, no problem. This is just because the overclock's unstable. Like, nothing's broken. But yes, there's your errors on modern hardware. I say modern hardware. This DDR3 was probably made in about 2007, so 14 and a half years old or something, most likely. 14 to 14 and a half. But modern-ish. I guess the point being it's not like, you know, SD RAM. Which, I don't think I have any more of that stuff. Or do I? I'm not sure. I think I got rid of it all. I say got rid of it, to be clear, gave it to someone, not binned it. I don't like binning hardware. I don't like binning hardware in the sense of throwing it away. Binning hardware in the sense of testing lots of samples to see how the overclocking is, that I've done. Although not... I've tried to do it on stream a couple of times. I don't think it really works on stream because like you're just sat like watching a test run for ages and you run out of things to talk about, frankly. And also for me it's just a lot easier to like... I guess I could do what BuildZoid does, which is he like sets off a test and then he'll like play a game while the test is still running. That might work. I could try that sometime. But yeah. In general, when you're like having to run through a lot of different hardware, or rather a lot of identical hardware but different samples for overclocking testing, it's like what you want to do is you want to set something off and then you want to be able to like watch a video or play a game or just wander off and do something else, maybe tidy up a bit. Goodness knows this room could do with it. Something like that. And so it's not ideal for streaming, really. So mostly when I've done that, it's been off stream. Ooh, we've got more errors in test 9. Okay. So it was 10 errors before test 9, and then we've got like a few more in test 9? Yeah, that's not looking brilliantly happy, is it? Crispy Silicon says a few. Yeah, just a few. I have seen way worse than this. I've seen so much worse than this. I've seen some just absolutely ridiculously unstable stuff in my time. This, by comparison, this is looking pretty stable. I know I'm saying that as the error count ticks up, but honestly... Okay. So it's like 10 errors in the earlier tests, and then we're looking at many hundreds in test 9, let's say. So with that in mind, let's try 1.8 volts. Alex says, oh, and I also bought a 1070 to replace my 390X daily. Huh. That's a fairly small upgrade. But I mean, I guess fair enough with the current market. I mean, if you're trying to replace a 390X, what are you going to do? Get a 6500 XT? It's funny because the 390X is actually probably a little bit faster. Maybe depending on the game, depending on the application. At least it pulls less power, says Crispy. Yeah, that's true. Significantly less power. Like a third to maybe a quarter as much? Ah, right, yeah. Alex says that was my main goal. Yeah. Less power makes sense. And yeah, a 1070 even would be like... not as little as a half, but not far off of half the power of a 390X. So yeah. Definitely a worthwhile upgrade. I don't know. I mean, personally, like, I'm languishing on a 7870 XT at the minute, having got rid of anything faster. Which is, I mean, it's fine. The effect of like dropping down to a 7870 XT for my daily system is I've rediscovered what a good game Just Cause 2 is. And you know what else is great about Just Cause 2 is it's pretty easy to run. I could maybe stream just that. That might be interesting, actually. Like, if I did a stream where I was like playing Just Cause 2 in between like testing overclocks for hardware binning, that could be fun. I'd need to get OBS set up to actually do like screen capture, because I've not done that before. Alex says, according to Tech Power Up's performance summary thing, a 6500 XT is 109% of a 390X. Oh, right. That's actually not bad. Especially because Tech Power Up have been testing at settings that like use more than 4 gigs of video memory, which is a bit unfair to the 6500 XT in a way, because the thing is, like, it's not... At that point, like, if you buy a 6900 XT, you're not going to be running at those settings. You're probably running at lower settings than that. But, I mean, obviously, like, it's a limitation, and it's showing the effect of the limitation, but, like, it's also making it look worse than it is, I kind of feel. Like, you're benchmarking the amount of video memory rather than benchmarking the actual performance. I don't know. It's... The problem with GPU reviews in general is it's actually kind of difficult to evaluate something objectively. A lot of GPU reviews, historically, they've always just turned settings up to max and just like run at the most demanding settings, and they've just said, well, look, we're running at the most demanding settings because those are the settings that are hardest on the graphics card, and therefore it's the most GPU bottlenecked. But historically, the amount of GPU memory has not been a huge consideration, whereas these days it is. And so now it's like, you have graphics cards where the frame buffer is actually getting overrun. It's not... I mean, maybe calling it a frame buffer is a little bit outdated, but it's... You know, the amount of VRAM is a problem. So then it's like, how do you objectively evaluate it? Because if you run on lower settings, then it's going to run fine. Like, people are going, oh, the 6500 XT is so crap because look, it's getting like such low FPS. But like, well, it works great if you run at higher FPS. Not higher FPS, lower settings, sorry. You get higher FPS as a result of the lower settings. But then, like, obviously, if you're running at lower settings, it's going to be more CPU bound. So it makes it more difficult to evaluate the relative performance of graphics cards. So then you just get into this question of like, well, what's it worth, you know, never mind like performance per dollar, what's it worth to like run on higher settings? And there's not really a good way of quantifying that. Crispy Silicon says test looking solid, and yeah, I mean, it's into test 9. This is where it was hundreds of errors before, I think, and it's looking completely fine. So yeah, more voltage has worked. It scales. I'm interested how much. I mean, there's clearly a bit of a wall. I might just stick with 1550. I don't know. It'd be really nice to get 1600 working, like around 1600, rather than like just under 1600. I don't know. Oh, hey Yasarian. Yasarian says 3090 Ti is value king. I mean, it depends how you do your maths, doesn't it? Like, the maths of, like, performance per dollar, but, like, we're counting the dollars spent on an entire system, get pretty funky. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of... This is why quantifying is not necessarily the best way of approaching things. Because, you know, FPS at certain settings is not the best way of evaluating graphics cards. The best way of evaluating graphics cards that's sort of most meaningful is, well, what kind of settings can you run with comfortable FPS? But then you can't quantify that. You know, you can't make a chart of, like, settings per dollar. Tech Tested says Quadfire 5970 is value king. Have you got Quadfire 5970s? I'm guessing you do then. When are you going to stream again anyway, Tech Tested? I mean, I know normally, like, you've been doing Tuesdays and Thursdays sometimes, and I know I'm sat here streaming on a Thursday. I think I want to let this pass completely finish. Crispy Silicon says I turn my pre-rendering to absolute minimal, turn the quality settings to max and let rip. What's pre-rendering in this context? Like, I've actually not come across that. Tech Tested says I'm thinking about streaming tomorrow if I can find the time. Schedule's changed dramatically with work. Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, when you want to and when you have chance, but yeah, that'd be nice. Got to overclock your Opteron 3365. What's that one? Oh, AM3 Plus. Oh, nice. Crispy Silicon says, so in GPU control panel settings, you can usually select the number of pre-rendered frames. Right. Isn't that, like, specifically a VSync thing? I thought that was like specifically a VSync thing. Like, you have like a small buffer of frames. I might be wrong. But yeah, Pirate Cypher there saying cute username about Crispy Silicon in relation to, like, max settings and letting it rip. Yeah, it is relevant. Yusarian said, I want to run a Xeon Phi cluster, but I need to get single card working first. How many Xeon Phis do you have? Also, why? I mean, I'm all for it, but I'm curious what the application is. Crispy says it's not VSync related. More like branch predictor run ahead. That's interesting. I've not come across that before. I might have to look into that. Is this like specifically an Nvidia thing then? Lower will decrease latency, higher will bring the frames, but sometimes your average frame time can be better with it low, says Crispy Silicon. That makes sense. I'm pretty sure it's AMD 2. I've not seen it before. There's an Extreme Systems thread from like 2011 that talks about flip queue size, which I guess is the same thing. I guess it's just not something I've come across. That could be really interesting for benchmarks. Assuming that, like, you know, you're allowed to mess with it for benchmarks. Oh no! Ah. One error. Come on. Damn. That's really annoying, because it not only is it one error, it's one error in test 10. So it takes 12 minutes to find that one error. Ah. Yeah, fuck it. I'm just going to call that close enough. Right. So 1580 roughly? We'll see if that works. Because 1600 did... Oh, 01. Okay, that's a no, isn't it? Yeah, I think that was a full-on no post at 1580. I mean, this is so ridiculous. Like, I'm trying to do 1600 CL9, like most basic settings, and it's not working, which is fully expected. But yeah. Okay, screw that. Let's just drop back to 1500 because that's very reliable on this memory, and let's see. I don't know. I'm going to try like tightening way up. So I'm running like the 1066 timings at 1500. That's what, when it says SPD here, I mean that's the timings in the SPD on the memory, but they're timings for the SPD speed, which is 1066. So let's just see if they work. For starters. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I mean, to be fair, 1500 777 would be pretty decent, actually. Just, you know, kind of marred by the frequency wall. So, yeah, of course that hasn't worked. Alright. Well, let's see what it is. Normally it's TRCD, so let's, I don't know. I'll loosen out the primaries again. And I'll leave all the secondaries where they are. And then we can find out, is it the primaries or the secondaries? I think this is going to get into mem test. I'll let the tight secondaries run mem test. Crispy Silicon says, if I'm understanding it correctly, AMD call it Radeon anti-lag. Yeah, I guess Radeon anti-lag's a smaller queue. I think it might... I don't know if it does anything else as well. Oh, of course, Extreme Systems is down. Mm. There's someone on Tech Power Up forum saying anti-lag is a more extreme form of it in some way. And I'm not sure, like, what makes it more extreme? Like, is it, I guess, 0 pre-rendered? I don't know. It's kind of weird that Radeon anti-lag is like Polaris and newer. And of course the website has absolutely no information about what it really does. Bah! Bah, I say. It's probably vaguely analogous or doing something similar. Yeah, in NVIDIA you can manually select. Yeah, I noticed. I'm slightly surprised that there would be as much as like 5 frames pre-rendered. That seems really high. I guess I'm not enough of a gamer. Oh, and NVIDIA have obfuscated it as well. Wonderful. I think I'm just going to let this run through test 8. Because I know there's an error in test 10 anyway. And, I don't know. Let's give it test 9 as well. We'll do test 9. So, assuming that this passes test 9, whenever it gets around to that, my general stereotype is that normally if there's any one memory timing that can't tighten up, it's probably TRCD. Yeah, fuck it. You know, I'm bored. Let's just tighten up the primaries again now. Alex asks, is there a reason why you're running these sticks on AM3 Plus? So the main reason is that when I went to get my test bench, this is the board and CPU and everything that was already on the test bench. However, AM3 Plus also tends to have good compatibility with these like weirder, like lower density ICs, and yet it also can clock high. You know, socket 775 will work with them, but it won't. You know, if I was running into this wall on 775, I would not know why. I would think it might be the motherboard. It might just be that I couldn't overclock that high on the platform, or maybe it was the platform just couldn't clock that high with these ICs, that they were a bit harder to run or something. With AM3 Plus, I know it's not the platform that's the limit, it is the sticks, it is the ICs. But it also works with them. So that's why. And it happened to be the board that was on the test bench. Wait. Oh no. I fucking hate Gigabyte. That should not. So I guess I forgot to change the base clock back, or I guess maybe it didn't register because I just switched it back to manual and then didn't change the value. Well, whatever. Has it definitely got the base clock overclock applied? Yes, it's definitely running 1500. Okay, I'm not going to run through even more mem tests without changing anything. I think it was running 1500 before, I'm just not certain. Right. I think I would rather set something that's not going to post than set something that's going to mean another 10 minutes of testing. So I know that this didn't work, flat 7, so let's try 787 on the basis that normally it's TRCD. Yeah, well, that's not worked. Pirate Cypher says, speaking of blogging, here's something no one did before: tear down of an original Samsung Bar Plus. Nope, you're right. I don't think I've seen that. LSUSB said it's using a silicon. Oh, right. Yeah. I can't believe I never thought of using like Linux and LSUSB when I was doing the review for Player. That would have been a good idea. That's interesting, though. Well, I think 787 is still optimistic. Rather than making it more difficult for myself, let's keep the primaries flat. Let's do 88824. Right. I'm actually really interested what controllers all my various USB sticks have now. But also, like, the streaming setup is Windows. Alex says, how are the sticks looking so far compared to other early DDR3 you have? I think the only other DDR3 that I have is there's a version of like sorry, I'm tired. Words. I've got an OCZ value stick somewhere that I think has the same like Qimonda chips, and then other than that, it's like it's getting into like 1 gigabit micron, like D9 GT stuff like that. these sticks are completely rubbish compared to D9 GT. They're rubbish compared to 1 gigabit Samsung D. They're the fucking base clock's reset again. God damn it. What else are they rubbish compared to? They're rubbish compared to Elpida BASE. I think they're not as good as Elpida BABG either. But yeah. Pirate Cypher says, I'm 4th gen Intel laptop user, so I can never change voltage or frequency. Yeah, fair enough. It's... Honestly, I've been on and off dailying Linux. And I'm currently off just at the moment. I feel a bit bad about it, because the truth is well, actually no, one of the really big things it is for me is MS Paint is like the killer app for Windows. Like, obviously GIMP is, you know, has more functions, but it takes forever to start up. And I find like a big thing that I do with my time is like I'm on Discord and I'll like take a screenshot and circle something and like just, you know, select that bit, copy it, paste it into Discord, and that takes forever to do with Linux. At least I've not found a program that makes it not take forever. So that's actually the really big thing for me personally. Game compatibility to some extent is a thing, but like Linux has enough games. Right. Let's get our base clock back. Thank you, Gigabyte, for that. But yeah, Fox says, try Flame Shot. Not heard of it, so maybe. Open source screenshots. Oh, no. No, this has the word cloud in it. I don't like it. Also, it looks like 1500 88824 is not happy now that it's actually doing full clocks. So let's reset that in the hope that we actually get the recovery screen. What? Okay, I guess that was just like the capture card being weird. Speaking of taking screenshots and posting them on Discord, I think this is as good a time as any to plug the fact that I have a Discord. It's here, and I talk about my streaming plans, and I ping everybody when I go live, so if you want to get a ping on Discord when I go live, it's a good way to get that. I sometimes have polls and stuff, and there's also a cars channel as well. Cars and bikes channel. But yes, feel free to join if that's something that anyone finds interesting, although I think most of the people here are probably already in there anyway. Right. I have seen your message, Alex, but I'm going to set some timings first. Let's blame TRCD. Let's do 898. But yes, Alex said one more thing as Qimonda made DDR4. To which the answer is no. They flamed out pretty spectacularly, actually. Really, like, early on. Like, Qimonda didn't even stay in the DDR3 game for that long. And I think Elpida gobbled up a lot of their engineers. Like, they didn't directly buy anything, or maybe they bought a bit of it, but like I think it was more that Elpida like just set up in the same geographical location and hired everyone. But yeah, there's a great like local news story about like Qimonda employees. I don't think were very happy. I think there was something about people not getting paid. Um, so an employee like hoisted a pirate flag at a Qimonda site as like a protest. The date on that kind of gives you a bit of information as well. Like that was sort of early to mid 2009. So that was while Qimonda were sort of in the process of flaming out. Oh right, no, Elpida actually did buy stuff out of Qimonda. So Elpida bought the graphics DRAM business, which is kind of funny because like Micron didn't make graphics memory until they bought Elpida. So like modern like Micron memory, it is descended from Qimonda, effectively. Right. What about 988? Maybe it's weak on CL or something. That's looking promising. Pirate Cypher says Micron is weird. They buy brands and kill them for fun. I mean, oh, well, it's running, but there's errors. Yeah, it. I was sad to see Elpida as a name disappear. I'm sort of retroactively sad about it, as well. And yeah, the thing where Micron like bought up, that's the big one actually with 3D Crosspoint, where Micron like, I guess Intel must have really wanted to dump it or something, but yeah, Micron buy into it and then they're like, actually we're selling the factory, lol. It's not even extend and extinguish yours, because it's like, it's not as if they're dominant in the market. They're not getting rid of competition, really. I don't know. But I like to think that when it comes to like, I mean, when it comes to Elpida, and I think Micron also picked up Rex Chip, which was the joint venture between Elpida and PowerChip. You know, that's stuff that will have been integrated into Micron's own technology. You know, obviously Micron continued to make graphics memory, and that's something that they got from Elpida, for example. But yeah, it is sort of a little bit sad, because Elpida made some really nice DDR2 and DDR3. I don't know about DDR1. I haven't tried Elpida DDR1. And also, like when people talk about PowerChip and PSC, like I was talking about PSC with Alex earlier, like DDR3 2600 CL8. That's an Elpida design. That's an Elpida design fabbed by PowerChip. Crispy says I've got to get ready to pick up the kids. Good stream, Mick. Thank you, and I'll see you when I do. Alex says, have Elpida made DDR4? What about PSC? I think Elpida might have had a really early engineering sample of DDR4. I'm not certain. PSC do make DDR4, but I've no idea what they're licensing to do it, or if they've got their own design or what. Pirate Cypher said they also got Lexar and killed it after a while. Then they sell it to a semiconductor manufacturer in China. Oh. Yeah, that is a bit annoying. I guess, I mean, at least with... I don't know. I feel at least with this, like, component stuff, it's like... It makes sense why they're doing it, because it's like they're getting the technology. But, yeah. That is annoying, though. Have Micron ever made flash drives? Like, I mean, they make... Crucial will make SSDs, but, like... Did they ever make USB drives? Apparently they did. Is that still a thing? No, but like... That's kind of interesting, though. At one stage there were, like, you know, Crucial and therefore Micron flash drives. Alright, well, this is hundreds of errors in test 7, so... Let's find out if... I don't know. I kind of want to try less voltage, because I'm already at quite a high voltage. And sometimes with early stuff, the rollover's not always that high. Rollover being like the sort of point where more voltage makes things worse rather than better. So let's try 1.7. Pirate Cypher says most SSDs are using Micron. Yeah, but like, I mean, like, made in a kind of a first-party way, because Crucial's like part of Micron rather than like just using Micron's chips. Although Crucial, they may be part of Micron, but they like there are a lot of examples of Crucial memory that use non-Micron chips, which is kind of interesting. Like, I've seen Crucial memory with Hynix, Samsung, Elpida power chip, which is sort of just Elpida from a different factory. I think I've seen Crucial Promos, I'm not sure. I've even seen like Crucial sticks that are literally like a Samsung OEM stick with a Crucial label slapped on top of the Samsung label, which is kind of funny. Alex says, wait, for a 480mm rad that's normally 160mm fans, right? Am I being stupid or something? Because I don't know if they even are 160mm fans. Well, I hesitate to agree with self-deprecation, but I don't think there are 160mm fans. A 480mm rad is normally 4x120mm fans. Alright, that got 686 errors at 1.7 volts. I think that's a little bit higher. Let's try 1.75. Yee245 says, I thought Crucial was just Micron's branding for the consumer-oriented products. I mean, I think they are, like, somewhat of a separate company. I mean, they're part of Micron, but like they're like different people, maybe in a different building or a different bit of the building. So primarily they exist as a way to sell Micron stuff, but they also exist to make money in their own right. I mean, it's the same thing with like SpecTech, right? Where like SpecTech's entire purpose is just to sell like Micron's quality rejects, but they are like effectively like their own like group of people, their own division doing their own thing. I was going to try 1.75. Alex says, yeah, okay, I think the seller is lying then because it clearly has 3 fan mounts. Maybe it's a 420mm radiator. I think that's the thing. That would be 3 140mm fans, maybe? I mean, even just a 360mm rad with 3 120mm fans, that would still be good. That would still be great. But yeah, I don't know if Crucial were ever independent, but they've always been like sort of a little bit weird, a little bit like really, really tight in with Micron and obviously owned by Micron, but also a little bit at arm's length. About to hit test 7. It'd be really funny if this is the sweet spot and there's just like no errors at 1.75 volts, but hundreds at 1.7 or 1.8. Nope, there we are. Okay. Darn. Alright, let's try 1.85. I thought this was going to be on the short side, but I've ended up getting kind of into this. Like, this memory is awful. It's terrible, but I kind of want to see what it can do. Even though it's... whatever it can do, it's not good. It's deeply unimpressive. The only reason to have this is like novel. Well, there might be a slight like performance per clock advantage because the even lower density means that like you have a lower TRFC, possibly, but like I don't know. Realistically, this memory is not good. It's the only value is like as a like collector's thing, which is why I bought it. But I'm also really like interested what it can like what I can get out of it, if anything. Yasarian says 500 base clock IC. Oh yeah, that would be funny, yeah. So Yasarian's talking about AM3 base clock overclocking there, not AM3 plus. Which is something we've been talking about a lot over the last while. Yeah, because like there's some kind of like Micron memory seems to be weirdly good at it. Nanya memory for some reason is quite good at like base clock overclocking on AM3, and it actually makes a difference. Like a lot of memory, you hit a base clock wall at like 330 megahertz, but then like Nanya, you can go higher than that, and you can go higher the more voltage you give it generally, and then Micron you can go way higher, like 380. So it does seem to be memory dependent. It would be funny. I think it's quite unlikely, but it would be funny. BBSC does good apparently at least some kits, says Yoz. Yes, I've heard that as well, but I've tried a lot of different BBSC and none of it has got past 330 on the board that I was testing on. But that's the other problem, is that different boards behave differently. So maybe on some boards BBSC is good, but not on the boards that I've tried. Tech Tested says best I got on Nanya was 370. Yeah, and 370 is really good. I don't think voltage is making much difference to these errors. There's nothing that's giving me a reason to think that it scales with voltage. Alex went away for a little while, but I think the seller's doing something wrong as it has 3 fan mounting things on the 480mm. Alex, do you want to post pictures in stream discussion in the Discord? Meanwhile, I'm going to drop down to 1.7 volts. And I am going to blame TRCD again. And we'll see if it can do 998. Maybe that could be like my catchphrase, blame TRCD. Get that on a t-shirt. Huh. Well, that's introduced some errors in test 5 that weren't there before. Yeah, that looks like a 360 milvad, Alex. Okay, so I think dropping down to 1.7 volts has made it unhappy just in general. And we still have all of the errors at the end of block move as well. Right. Better than no rad. Yeah, much better than no rad. Okay. So we'll go back up to 1.75 volts in the hopes that that gets rid of the errors. Okay. I'm about to do something very cursed. I'm going to run TRCD below CL and RP. I feel like if the system has any sense of humour, the moment I save and exit, something will just explode on the motherboard. I don't know if this actually works, or if like there's a reason for it to not. Like, I've never seen it done, and it feels just viscerally wrong. I mean, people run, like, I've seen people run low CL, low RCD and high RP. And I've seen people run high CL, low RCD and low RP. Those errors in test 6 are still there. Maybe it needs more voltage. Because I did drop back quite a lot on the voltage. Maybe I should try 1.8 again. But let's see what happens at the end of test 7. Huh. Hold on, is it TRAS? Maybe it's just TRAS. How warm are the sticks getting? I'm just gonna like grab one. Not too bad. They are noticeably a little warm, but I'm comfortable with it on the basis that the heat sinks, I think, are pretty well attached to the ICs, so probably not too bad. They're not like hot. Yeah. Still got a few random errors though, so that's a little bit concerning. Maybe they're not happy getting warm. The thing I'm really interested in is what happens at the end of test 7 now. To be honest, if it turns out it was TRAS... Well, the thing is, if it turns out it was TRAS, who knows what I could do next. Where did I leave my RAM fan? I have a RAM fan somewhere. And there's still a gazillion errors at the end of test 7. Okay, fuck it, memory's cursed. Yeah. I'm actually just going to set it back to default. But basically, I've actually been going for nearly 3 hours now, which is... I was expecting this to be 2, like, in total. But I guess I got kind of in... Something about MemTest 86 Plus just sort of sucks you in. It's addictive. But I think I do want to finish up sooner rather than later. I could do with actually getting to bed at some point, apart from anything else. So let's just have a quick run at stock. Just, I don't know. Forks says, just got around to fixing Yoz's balked B-die SPD. RFC is set to 2. That seems a little bit tight, even for B-die, yeah. I can see why that wouldn't work. I didn't realise Yoz had a balked B-die SPD. Did he edit it? No. Did he edit it himself, or was this like just it got balked by something? Yoz says, I thought I just loaded a profile in Typhoon. Oh boy. Okay. Alex asks, one more thing. How far could I go on VCore on the 3960X on the 360mm rad combo, assuming the pump block is decent enough? So 1.5 volts on a 3960X long term will degrade it. Buildzoid used to run Sandy Bridge E, he degraded his that way. Long term, 1.45 volts is the like for daily. For benching, I don't know, honestly. I'd be comfortable with 1.5 for benching. I would maybe be comfortable with even more than that. Like, if it's not getting too hot, 1.55 probably fine. I think people who are doing like single threaded benches and who are like testing the maximum multiplier that could boot on Sandy Bridge, I think run some really crazy voltages. But don't quote me on that. Like, check on the Hardware Bot Discord or something, because I'm not a Sandy Bridge guy. Forks says it's also cut down to single rank. Fun. Yoz says I needed 2933 JEDEC for a Xeon thing, then found out it only runs that in single rank per channel, and I didn't have enough RAM sitting around, so I disabled a rank and never fixed it. Fair enough. That is quite funny. Like, oh, I need single rank for this. These are dual rank DIMMs. I know. I mean, fair play. Alex says Bungemon ran 1.62 V-Core on his 3930K with outside cold air. Yeah, that sounds about right. It's consistent with what I've heard from people generally. For benching, not for daily, obviously. I mean, the thing with Sandy Bridge is it doesn't even go that cold. It has a really nasty cold bug. So, like, the people who are running, like, really high voltages, they're running really high voltages at, like, minus 50 or something. Anyway, I think I'll let MemTest finish. I'll let it do a complete pass for luck, because somehow I feel better about that, and then I'll call the stream, I think. Alex asks, do you remember which clocks Buildzoid ran his 3960 at when 1.52 degraded it? I have no idea. You'd have to ask him, but it was his old daily system, like way back when he first was getting into overclocking. So, I don't know. I guess like 4.8 or something, or 5, something in that range. Because I assume he wasn't running unnecessarily high V-Core. While that runs, I have a random plate near the streaming stuff that I'm going to just take and put by the dishwasher. Because, you know, hygiene is a good use of time. And a random anti-static bag as well, which I think the network card for the system I was testing out earlier was in that. So that can go somewhere. I don't know. I've been sitting down for like nearly 3 hours, so I'm restless now. I'm standing up. I'm on my feet. And of course the later tests take longer. Forks said I was confused before since Buildzoid also has a Threadripper 3960X. Yeah, no, this was Sandy Bridge E, like way back in the day. I might just put some more stuff away. I can put my screwdrivers back in the screwdriver rack. I have a can of energy drink on my desk that I've never opened because I didn't end up feeling the need for it. That can go back in the fridge. Alex says I always get people who are amazed at me having a Threadripper 3960X before I tell them it's an old hexacore. Yeah. One of those certainly tolerates 1.6 volts better than the other, says Forks. Yes. I agree with that. Would not want to run 1.6 volts through a Threadripper 3960X. Probably would be very difficult to cool as well. There's that really old clip from Buildzoid's stream of like someone in chat asked what he thinks of Threadripper potentially being quite high TDP, and he just like waves an LN2 DUR at them. Forks says, yesterday I learned a 3980X 48 core exists. I've never heard of that. Is that retail? Forks says, check the top 3080 times by Extreme sub. It's subbed as a 3990 though. Interesting. I will look this up. This gives me something to do while Memtest finishes. Times by Extreme. Huh. How about that? That's really weird. So, like, the specification string in CPU-Z, I'll post the link in chat. The specification string in CPU-Z still calls it a 3990X. But then CPU-Z also identifies it as a 3980X. That's weird. I wonder if that's CPU-Z just, like, not handling the disabled cores well, or if it's actually like a real thing. So there's a Tom's Hardware article about how like a screenshot surfaced but they're not sure it's real. Video cards have an article about it as well. Fun. Oh, that's interesting. So the video cards article has the same thing going on where like the specification string calls it a 3990X. Forks says, I didn't notice until I saw the 19K CPU score, which is low for a 3990X. That's interesting as well. So it's not like they would just disable cores because it helps. Like, if they have a 3990X, they would surely want to run it with all the cores. So it must only have 48 cores, then. Fascinating. Yeah, interesting. Forks says, yeah, 64 cores, 64 threads is the meta for times by Extreme. Gets around 24k. Huh. Sounds expensive. think I'll stick to 3D Mark 05 myself. Well, we're nearly there. Yours says somehow costs more than my boat anchor server with 15 core CPUs. What do you mean by boat anchor server? Actually, this might be a question better suited for the Discord. This might be. The server had to be shipped freight. Oh, right. So, like, literally by sea. Or just because it was big. Like, was it going internationally, or is it just, like, just heavy as fuck? Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I'm interested to see what you end up doing with that server. 100% is always the slowest percent. Come on. Finish so I can finish the stream. Pirate Cypher says, OMG, they're selling tiny AI accelerators with M3 ARM CPU for $500. Chip's gone so mad. Isn't M3 like the microcontroller thing, like an embedded thing? Yeah. I agree, that seems kind of mad. I guess maybe if it has lots of them. Anyway, I'll put link in Discord. Yeah, thanks. Yes, because I'd like to chat about that in Discord, but also I would like to finish streaming because Memtest's finished and it's been like 3 hours. So, yes, I'll. Alex asks if the IC I'm currently running has a special name apart from 512 megabit Qimonda. I don't know what the revision is. Maybe I'll find out one day, but for now I don't know. As far as I know, they only ever made one, so 512 megabit Qimonda is specific enough. I think, hopefully. Yeah. Anyway, I need to go to bed fairly soon. So, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you everyone for chatting. It's been really nice. People have been really active in chat. It's been good. I really appreciate it because I've really enjoyed it. But I definitely need a break now. So, yes. Kill the system. Yes. Thank you for watching and good night.